Hey everybody. Today we're going to be looking at solving the quadratic equation in its general form. The general form is a constant a times x squared plus a constant b times x plus another constant c is equal to 0. The first step into solving for x will be to divide through by a. So we'll actually divide all of these terms by a. So we can divide by a. These a's will cancel out. We can divide by a here, divide by a here, and divide by a here. This will give us the next form of the equation. X squared plus b over a times x plus c over a is equal to 0. 0 divided by anything will give you 0 still, so we still just have a 0 here. The next step we're going to need to do is we're going to need to complete the square. In order to complete the square, you have to have the coefficient of the first term to be 1, which we already did that by dividing through by a. The second part of completing the square is taking the coefficient of the middle term, which is the x term, dividing by 2, squaring that, and then adding it to both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to actually add the coefficient of the middle term, which is b over a. We're going to divide that by 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. We're going to square that. And that's added to this side, but we're also going to add that to this side. So b over a times 1/2 squared. Now we'll have x squared plus b over a times x plus b squared over 4a plus c over a is equal to b squared over 4a squared. Excuse me, this is an a squared. Here, the numerator is just b times 1, which is b, and then you square that and you'll get a b squared. In the denominator, we have an a times 2, or a 2 times a, and when we square that we get a 2 squared, which is a 4, and an a squared, which is an a squared. B squared over 4a squared. Now this part here is actually a complete square. Now what we'll do is, we'll make some space here. What we'll do is, we have a complete square, which is x plus b over 2a squared plus c over a is equal to b squared over 4a squared. Now seeing here, you square the first term, you get your x squared. You square the second term, you get b squared over 4a squared. And also, if you multiply the two, you get b times x over 2a plus x times b over 2a. And when you add those together, you just get b over a times x. The next thing we'll do is we'll actually move this c over a to the right side of the equation. We can do that by subtracting off c over a from both sides. So now we'll have x plus b over 2a squared is equal to the c over a minus c over a. These will cancel. b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. Make a little bit more room here. Now, what we can do is actually take the square root of both sides. So if we take the square root of this side, we'll get x plus b over 2a. And over here, we'll get plus or minus the square root of b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. We might want to make this into one single fraction underneath the square root. So let's go ahead and do that. In order to do that, we need to make the denominator of both pieces the same. So we have an a here. So what we'll need to do is we'll also need to multiply by 4a. But we can't just multiply by 4a, we also need a 4a up here. We're multiplying by 1. So then, this piece in here would be 4ac over 4a squared. Then we'll be able to combine this into one piece. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll have x plus b over 2a is equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. It's important to note that this 4a squared is the same as 2a squared. You get a 2 squared would be 4, and an a squared would be a squared. So we can actually write this as the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom, or the square root of the numerator over the square root of the denominator. And so the square root of the denominator would then be 2a. So we can show that over here. X plus b over 2a is equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now remember, all along we've been solving for x. So now the only thing we need to do is move this term to the right side of the equation and we'll have found our answer. And we can do that by subtracting off a b over 2a from both sides of the equation. Now we're left with x by itself is equal to negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This term and this term both share the same denominator, so we can actually combine those, and this expression is also equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is our final and complete solution. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. For any coefficients a, B, and C in our original equation, this will generate the two solutions that would solve the original equation. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you, and please join us for another session at highschoolmathcourses.com. Have a good day.